All right, let's jump right into a classic puzzle. You know the type. A perfect crime, a locked room with absolutely no way in and no way out. But listen, this isn't just some old school mystery story. This is really a story about how we understand our world, our society, and maybe even ourselves. So the master of suspense himself, Alfred Hitchcock, he once cooked up the ultimate locked room mystery. Picture this. You're at a car factory. You watch a car get built from scratch, literally from a single nut and bolt, right there on the assembly line. It's finally done, gleaming, ready to go. Two guys walk over to admire their work. They open the car door, and a dead body just tumbles out. I mean, really think about that for a second. We saw the whole thing, every step. There's no way anyone could have put it there. Now, this isn't just a clever gimmick for a movie, it's a paradox. And it forces us to ask a much bigger question. What happens when something shows up that, according to the rules we know, just shouldn't exist? To even begin to solve an impossible crime like this one, we've got to look at two totally different ways of investigating, two completely different logics for getting to the truth. Okay, so on one hand, you've got the police method. Their whole approach is based on the idea that the world is just a collection of facts you can see and measure. So their job? Gather all the evidence, every piece of that car, every worker's alibi. They're looking for an outsider, something that broke into their otherwise perfect, sealed system. But then you have the detective. And the detective thinks in a totally different way. They're not just looking at the facts, they're looking at the logic. For the detective, that corpse isn't some intruder from the outside. No, it's a giant, flashing sign that the system itself, the so-called locked room, was never really locked to begin with.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. These two methods, they're not just for solving crimes. The police method, that represents a whole philosophy called historicism. And the detective's approach, well, that's basically psychoanalysis in a nutshell. We're talking about two fundamentally different ways of seeing reality itself.
So the police method, that's historicism. It's this core belief that if you can just gather enough data, enough facts, you can perfectly piece together what happened and, understand the world. It's this deep-seated faith that truth is always found in what you can see, what you can measure, what you can prove. This quote just nails the historicist dream, doesn't it? It's this fantasy of total knowledge. This idea that if you just have an avalanche of numbers, you can explain even the most deeply personal and unpredictable human acts, like suicide. The hope is that if you have enough stats, you can make all the mysteries just disappear. But here's the fatal flaw. The police can document every single nut, every bolt, every weld on that car. They can fill volumes with data. And yet, none of those facts will ever explain the one thing that actually matters, the corpse. The very thing that doesn't fit proves their whole method is missing something absolutely crucial. Okay, so let's switch gears and look at the detective's approach. We're going to see a completely different picture emerge here. Because instead of staring at the facts, the detective is looking for the blind spot, the logical flaw that's hidden in the system itself. And here it is, the big aha moment. The detective realizes the corpse isn't just another piece of evidence to be cataloged. The corpse is the thing that tells us there's a mystery at all. It's the one element that absolutely does not belong, and its very presence proves that the whole idea of a sealed system was a complete fiction from the start. There was always a crack, a gap in the logic that we just couldn't see until now. In the world of the psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan, this impossible thing, this glitch, has a name. He called it the real. Now, the real isn't reality as we see it. It's the traumatic, messy part that our neat systems of language and logic just can't make sense of. It's the glitch in the matrix. It's the corpse in the car. It's the internal contradiction that our supposedly rational systems are secretly designed to keep out. So what if we took this detective logic and applied it to a much bigger crime scene? Not a car, but our entire social and political world. What if society itself is a kind of locked room? Well, the argument goes something like this. Our democracies, our legal systems, our whole social order, they all operate like that car factory. They pretend to be complete, rational, and totally figured out. They're built on this promise that somewhere there's a final guarantee, an ultimate authority who has the final say. But psychoanalysis says, nope. That final guarantee, it doesn't exist. At the very heart of the system, there's a void. It's empty. And the idea of the Teflon president is a perfect example of this. Think about it. People can completely distrust the actual person in the White House, but they still maintain their faith in the office of the president.
How does that work? It's because the person is just a placeholder. They're filling a role that is, by its very nature, empty. The president actually comes to represent the impossibility of any one person being the final, absolute authority in a democracy. But this logic, this idea of a system built around a central impossibility, it doesn't just stop with politics. It gets way more personal than that. It applies to the most intimate locked room of all, our own identities. The investigation is about to turn inward. So let's turn to this final mystery. If our whole society is a locked room built around an empty center, what about us as individuals? What's the unsolvable case at the very heart of who we are? According to this line of thought, it all comes down to the logic of sexual difference. So what is this fundamental impossibility that our very identities are built around? According to Jacques Lacan, it's the simple but profound fact that there's no such thing as a perfect, complete, harmonious relationship between the sexes. He argued there's no single formula that can define man or woman without creating its own logical paradox, its own corpse in the system. So Lacan laid out two different logics for how we build an identity around this missing piece. And it's really important to get this. We're not talking about biology here. These are two different structures for dealing with the paradox. Okay, let's look at the masculine side first. It tries to create a complete universal set, the idea of all men, but it can only do that by imagining a single mythical exception, a primal father figure who is somehow outside the rules that bind everyone else. That one exception is what allows the universal group to exist. Now, the feminine logic is totally different. It's defined as not all. This doesn't mean incomplete or lacking something. It means that this position is never fully captured or defined by any universal rule. There's no single exception that can lock it down into a neat category. It always spills over the edges of the system's logic.
So, what does this all mean? It means sexual identity isn't some simple binary. It's about two different strategies for dealing with the fact that no identity can ever be totally whole. The masculine position, because it relies on this universal rule and a mythical exception, is a kind of imposture. It has to pretend to be a complete, self-contained thing, even though it's built on a fiction. The feminine position, on the other hand, is a masquerade. It doesn't pretend to be whole. Instead, its not all status actually reveals the truth of the situation, that the system itself is flawed, and there's always something more than its tidy logic can ever contain.
And that brings us right back to where we started, with a paradox. If our world, our politics, and even who we are is structured like a locked room, built around a central, necessary impossibility, what does that even mean for our attempts to fix society and create a perfect world? Maybe the detective's real lesson is that the flaw, the corpse in the car, isn't the problem we need to eliminate. Maybe it's the very thing that makes the whole system run.